Hey guys, how's it going? Seth Williams here. In this video, I'm going to talk about a lot of things related to the subject of building a buyer's list, particularly as a real estate investor. There's actually going to be a lot more beyond this video covered in the lesson below, so be sure to check out all this stuff. There is a ton of information to go over here. But before we get that far, I just want to cover some of the basic things that I think you should be aware of and just think about as you're deciding where this whole buyer's list fits into your business, where and how you should prioritize it, and if you should prioritize it, and what it does and doesn't have to offer you as a real estate professional. And what I'm going to talk about here actually applies whether you're investing in houses, in land, in multifamily, commercial, or even if you're like a real estate agent or broker. We can all benefit from having a list of cash buyers. So when we talk about this term buyer's list, what we're talking about is a list of people, their names, email addresses, phone numbers, sometimes even more information. And this is a list of people who have come right out and said, I'm interested in buying what you're selling. And this kind of targeted audience can be really beneficial because you can go directly to this audience of warm leads. And because they've already expressed interest, it's just not as much of an uphill battle because you're already on the same page. So why exactly is it important to have a buyer's list? Well, there's a lot of different reasons why it can be helpful. But one of the most important things right off the bat is that it gives you credibility, especially if you're somebody who does a lot of assignments or double closings. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say assignments and double closings, I'm going to have a couple links below explaining more about that. But when you're talking with motivated sellers, you can legitimately tell them, I have a buyer's list of X number of people, or I have a network of X number of people who have already expressed interest in this type of property, and they have the cash or the financing or the resources to buy now. And when you can tell a seller that you've got a line of other investors actively looking for opportunities just like this, and this can make a big difference in terms of speed and making this thing sell quick. Now on the same coin, it's important to point out that this doesn't need to be a huge number. Even a dozen or two serious buyers can speak volumes to some people. In reality, even when you do hear of other investors that have thousands of buyers on their buyers list, only a small fraction of those people are actually actively buying properties from them. In some cases, it's almost like a vanity metric to make themselves sound really big or important. When it comes down to it, most buyers lists just have a really small portion of people who are really doing business. So don't think that you need to have thousands or even hundreds of people on your list before you're allowed to start telling people about it, because any number of serious buyers can really mean something. And even if you're starting from nothing, it honestly doesn't take a whole lot of work to build up a buyer's list of 10 or 20 people. I mean, if you really wanted to over the next couple weeks or even the next couple of days, you could pick up the phone, find interested cash buyers in your area, use your existing network to find people who want to join your list. And as long as you're actively pursuing building up this list, it doesn't have to take years to build this kind of thing. One of the beautiful things about building a list like this is that every single property you have to sell is an opportunity to add a lot of new people to your list. Think about it. Anytime you list a property for sale, when you get somebody who says, I'm interested, or tell me more, or how much will you take for it, that kind of thing. All these people, even when they don't end up buying, what they're doing is they're telling you, I'm looking for properties like what you have to sell. And even if they don't buy the property you currently have for sale, get their name, get their email address, get their phone number, or send them to your landing page so they can join your list. You'd be surprised how many people you can add to this list in a hurry if you're serious about it. Now, it's important to recognize and remember what a buyer's list is and what it isn't. Having a buyer's list is not going to solve all your problems. There's still a lot of other things you need to do in your business in order to move the needle forward. And just having this list isn't going to solve all your problems, but what it can do is make it a lot easier to sell some of your properties. I'd say a lot of people, when they use their buyer's list, they might sell like 10 to 20% of their properties to the people on their buyer's list. So it's not like everything automatically gets sold faster or easier, but it can be a quick fix and an easy solution for some of them. And just think about it. I mean, if you could have a quicker or easier fix to sell any of your properties, like why would you not want that? I mean, if it's there, you might as well take advantage of that. And I don't mean to portray that having a buyer's list is like effort-free, because it's not. It does take a bit of effort to set up the right infrastructure so that you can collect these names and phone numbers and email addresses and that kind of thing, and also to communicate with these people, but it's not that hard. And given the amount of work it takes to do this, you might as well get started sooner rather than later, especially if you're doing more than a few deals a month. So just to give you some context, the whole idea of building a buyer's list, this first originated back in like the 2008-2009 crash timeline when the real estate market just took a huge tank. And it was also a time when it became easier and easier to build lists of email addresses on the internet. And this idea of building a buyer's list is technically nothing new, but back during this time of a huge crash was when it became really evident that real estate investors desperately needed people who could buy their properties quickly because it was so difficult to sell properties. You couldn't sell real estate to save your life in some cases. So having a list of cash buyers who were ready to buy was a huge advantage because it allowed you to really take control of the selling process instead of just posting listings on the internet and waiting and waiting and waiting for the right buyer to come. And really, I think any time when there's a big recession in the real estate market, when it's a buyer's market, when it's just hard to sell properties, that's when a buyer's list becomes more and more and more important, because without that thing, you could be waiting for a long time to sell that property. But another thing to keep in mind is that when you're in a seller's market, when real estate is hot, when it doesn't take a whole lot of work to sell properties, a buyer's list is still helpful to have, but it becomes less and less critical because really all it takes is just posting the thing online at a reasonable price and it's gonna sell relatively quickly. So that's just something to keep in mind when you weigh your options and think about all the different things you have to do in your business. You may not necessarily want to prioritize this over everything else, especially if you're working in a market where properties are selling with some degree of ease. You don't necessarily want to put everything else on hold just to do this. Even though it's helpful, it may not be the best use of your time. On the other hand, if you are working in a market where things are super slow and sluggish, then maybe it is. But I just wanted to help you understand the dynamics of this so you can make your own decision on whether this is something you want to put at the top of your priority list, somewhere in the middle, or not on your list at all. And the truth is, I know a lot of real estate investors who are successful and they do not have a buyer's list at all. It might take them a little longer to sell certain properties in certain cases, and it could be even harder for them if they were in a terrible real estate market. But the point is, you don't have to have this to be successful. It's just something that's useful, and it's definitely an asset if you build one with the right people and you communicate with it well. So there's another important thing to understand about the geographic area where you're working. In general, the further spread out you are, the harder it's going to be to maintain a good, effective, relevant buyer's list. Because when you think about what most real estate investors are doing, they kind of have like one city or maybe even one zip code in mind in terms of where they're looking to buy properties. And if you're working in multiple cities or multiple counties or multiple states, and you're trying to blast out these opportunities to everybody on your list who may only be interested in that one area, it's just going to be harder to keep these emails or text blasts or listings relevant to these people when you're sending them stuff that they're just not interested in. The more consolidated you can keep your list, the better it's going to perform for you. And sometimes the way people's real estate investing businesses work is they just can't do it. The fact of the matter is, they are working in multiple counties or they are working in multiple states. And in those cases, it might be worth your while, especially if you're doing a ton of volume in one particular state or county, to create an individual list just for that area. Or depending on the software you're using, you could get even more sophisticated and start tagging certain people based on the city or the zip code or the county or the state where they're looking for properties, and then only send certain emails to those people. It can be done, but it starts to become more and more and more you have to think about. Another important thing to consider is that the harder you're willing to work at communicating with your list, the better it's going to perform for you. For example, if you just send out one email blast to your list every few months, don't expect them to even remember you, let alone actually do any business with you, because you just need to be more front of mind for them by sending them emails at least 1 or 2 times a month, possibly every single week, just so that they're aware of who you are. And that's why there are things like autoresponders, which basically allows you to set up a series of emails that just goes out automatically after a person signs up for your list. And some things you can do in these autoresponders is basically just write up almost like a little mini blog post, or even put together a video if you're that tech savvy, talking about like the benefits of buying this type of property that you're selling, or how to deal with certain issues that come up with this type of property. You could talk about due diligence issues to watch out for before buying one of these properties. You could give examples of big returns that you or your customers have gotten. Things like that. Just come up with interesting topics and ideas that people would love to hear about because they're on this list. Is directly related to this whole investment that you're offering them. And by doing this, you'll not only effectively remind them of who you are, but you'll sort of start to become an established authority in their minds because you're giving them a lot of useful and helpful information that's going to help them make a good decision if and when they do buy a property like this. Again, like, this takes work. This is not like, set it and forget it. However, once you do have these autoresponders created, that can be pretty effective at, keeping your list up to speed on who you are and establishing yourself as a known person in their mind. And this isn't even talking about the actual email blast that you do send out when you do send opportunities for new deals that are coming on the market. Same thing goes with text. Texting is a little bit different because it's much more like in a person's face. It's like pinging them on their phone. So you don't want to harass people when it comes to text messages, but at the very least, email is a really good way to just stay in a person's inbox and help them remember who you are. And if they don't want to hear from you, believe me, they will unsubscribe. The idea is to build these relationships on autopilot so that when a person sees an email from you, they're just going to instinctively know that it's going to be worth looking at. And I also wanted to address this thing that I've heard on some occasions from some house wholesalers, that you need to build your buyers list before you can start looking for deals. I don't know if I completely understand the rationale behind why this would ever be a good idea. You don't really have a business at all until you have a deal that's worth something that you can market to somebody. And if the deal is good enough, the money and the buyer is going to come from somewhere, whether you have a buyer's list or not. All you have to do is post it on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or give it to a realtor, and the thing is going to sell, and you're going to make money if you got it at the right price. So don't feel like you need to prioritize this at all costs. I think I've kind of beat that horse to death by now, but I just wanted to reiterate that right here, right now, before we get any further. So while it is true that having a well-managed and maintained buyers list is definitely going to help you sell certain properties a lot faster, it's also important to understand that this word buyers list means different things to different people. To some people, a buyers list is like just a handful of people, like maybe 3 to 5 people. But these people are like super serious buyers. Like they got the cash, they're gonna buy the deal like immediately. All it takes is a phone call and the thing is sold. In my mind, that kind of buyers list is incredibly powerful. I mean, it can almost like take a lot of your selling efforts off your plate because you've got these buyers who are ready to go immediately. But to other people, these words buyers list means something very different. It's basically just an email list with hundreds or thousands of names and email addresses on it. They may not even have phone numbers, and they don't know these people, and it's a very impersonal relationship. Really, it's just a matter of sending emails out, and most of those emails are completely ignored. It's really just a handful of people maybe who will actually respond or click on that email and go to the next step to even find out more information, and oftentimes don't even buy anything even after they do that. So I mean, when you just kind of hear the contrast between those two, I think most of us could understand that like having that active buyers list of just a few people who are serious about buying and they will buy, that is incredibly powerful when you compare it to just the sheer numbers of being able to say you have hundreds or thousands of people ready to go, whatever that means. And I think what this comes down to is your willingness to actually pick up the phone and call these people. And not just call them, but like actually know them, like know who they are, what their business is, what they're looking for, what their financial situation is even, so that you can really handpick the most relevant deals and deliver only those to them and show that you understand what they're looking for. That kind of thing really will build a lot more respect between you and your buyers because obviously you know exactly what they want. The point is, don't be afraid to pick up your phone and actually call these people and get to know them. And I'm not saying it's like bad or wrong to build the other kind of list that's less personal. I'm just saying that I wouldn't expect it to be nearly as effective if you're not willing to do the work of getting to know your buyers. And for the most part, with the tools that I'm going to show you in this lesson below, you're going to be able to build either type of list. But I just wanted to help you understand that you shouldn't expect stellar results if you're not willing to put in the work. So as we go through this lesson below, I'm going to show you a ton of different ways you can start finding cash buyers and adding them to your buyers list. And one interesting way you can do this is through social media, particularly on Facebook. This could also be done on LinkedIn. What I'm talking about is if you join all the buy, sell, and trade groups in your area that have anything to do with real estate, depending on the rules of the group, one way you can start posting your listings or even just posting a link to your landing page where people can then sign up for your buyers list is to just, post a link. But keep in mind, a lot of groups don't like that, and you're going to get banned if you do that. So you really need to understand like what is and isn't allowed in this community. Another way to do it would be to like post a picture of your recent deal or a deal that you currently have for sale, and then a link in the comments below, or even just say in the comments below, come and visit my website, or PM me for more details. Sometimes you can't even go that far. All you can do is just keep an eye on the conversations in that group and pay attention to who is actively doing deals, who seems to be really in the thick of it, making things happen, and send a direct message to them, asking them if they might be interested in either joining your list or checking out a specific property through which they could then join their list just by finding out more information about that. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. And ultimately what it boils down to is just paying attention to what's going on in these groups and looking for people who are actively buying properties. You can also look for older posts from active investors who maybe did a deal in the past or were looking for deals in the past. Go back 3 months, 6 months, maybe even a year, and reach out to them directly and say, hey, I saw you were looking for this deal back then, or I saw you did this deal back then. Are you still looking for deals like that? If so, I have an opportunity for you. The idea is to basically just look for the people who are active and try to make connections with them. Now, as I wrap this up, what I want you to take away from this is that we live in a time when it is easier than it's ever been to build and manage this kind of list. And if you have a well-built, well-managed, well-maintained list like this, it can be a huge deal. It can really remove a lot of the burden from your selling efforts. Some people sell 100% of their deals to their buyers list. So if you want to make this a big part of your business, you can totally do it. And I'm going to show you all the ways you can do it in this lesson below. But also be aware, if you do want one of these like super powerful buyers lists, it's not going to happen unless you're willing to put in a lot of effort and intent and communication to stay in touch with this list. So thanks for watching. If you got this far, give yourself a big pat on the back. Keep reading on. I hope this is life-changing information for you. I know it made a huge difference for me, and I hope it makes a big difference for you too. Thanks for watching.